So you've heard people talk a lot about meta ads, myself included for sure. But what happens after you stop running them? In today's video, I want to revisit an artist that I actually last talked about over a year ago, about 16 months ago. I made a couple of videos about this artist. The artist name is Old Friends, New Friends. When I was running ads for him, he is a friend of mine. And I did a video on how he triggered Discover Weekly with meta ads and how he got to 100,000 streams with meta ads. And then right after I made that 100,000 streams video, I turned the meta ads off, and that was 16 months ago. So in today's video, I want to go back to that artist and look at what his Spotify numbers and just what the overall audience looks like 16 months after meta ads were turned off. So if you're thinking about running ads and then maybe not having the budget to run them for the rest of your life, stick around to see what happens after you turn them off. Let's get into it. Let's start with Ads Manager. So this is the ad account that I was using to run those campaigns, and you can see here exactly when they were live. So they started in May of 2023, which feels like forever ago, and they ran until February of 2024. So not quite the full length of a year. Over that time, spent just short of $3,000, drove just short of 8,500 clicks total, and overall cost per result was 35 cents per hyped it smart link click, which I've actually since switched to Submit Hub for most of my links, but 35 cents per result. It's kind of funny looking at this actually because it's different from how I run campaigns now. Obviously, this was a couple of years ago, so things have changed a little bit since then. But just looking at the ad breakdown, even looking at the fact that I had a 65 plus audience in there, it's just interesting to see. So pretty even split between men and women, very even distribution across age ranges, and pretty consistent in terms of cost per result over the course of an entire year. So that was the campaign. If I look at the ad level, this video, which I think I've shown in different videos, so I'm not going to break it down a ton, was the winning video by far. And then obviously at the end of February 24th, 2024, we turned things off and we have not run anything for this ad over the rest of that time. So I think it's been like 16 months by my math at this point since we last drove traffic to the song. So that's what we did for promo. So obviously the next question is, what does it look like on Spotify over the intervening 16 months? So here is the song today, and I'll start and just show you the 28-day period, and then I'll show you what it's looked like over the last 12 months. In the most recent 28-day period, the streaming high was 130 streams on Wednesday. The low was like 48, it seems like. And 26 saves. There are days where it gets no saves. There are days where it gets a few, but 26 over the course of the month. So about one save per day. Overall, streaming is down, and you'll see when we go to 12 months, that's a general theme, is that it has slowly dipped. But the big thing is, in terms of overall numbers, when we paused ads, the song was right around 100,000 streams. It is now at 175,000 streams. So it's basically getting close to doubling the total number of streams that we accumulated for it over the course of the year of running ads. So here's what things look like over the last 12 months. You can see it's been a little bit of a downward trend. At the same time, it hasn't been a precipitous drop or anything. Compared to the previous period, it has been a precipitous drop because we were running ads during that time. But just in terms of the course of the year, it's not like it just went off a cliff like you would see from a playlisting campaign. It's been relatively consistent. And so that does give you reason to expect that this will continue, at least to some degree, over the next couple of years, regardless of what sort of promo my friend does going forward. I wouldn't think that there will come a time in the next 6 months, a year, where he'll just get no streams on this song. Although probably the volume will keep decreasing, and maybe eventually he'll get to a place where nobody listens to it. But that doesn't seem like it's imminent. And a large part of the reason for that, if we look at the source of streams, is that most of these streams are coming from listeners' own playlists and library. So these are the people who hopefully we found with ads who are still listening to the song 16 months later, having done no further promotion for it. A little bit of other playlists that are driving some streams, and then just a little bit of algorithmic traction still. But most of it coming from people who found the song, saved it, and listened to it again on their own, which is awesome. Location, Netherlands. The song was huge in the Netherlands. And the US are the top 2 countries. Again, we ran those ads just to tier 1 countries, so most of the traffic on the song comes from there. There's a little bit from Brazil, but mostly tier 1 countries. And then playlists. This is, I think, a show that my friend played this year. And then this is one of my playlists. It's still getting a little bit of Discover Weekly traction, even 16 months after we stopped the ads. Still getting a little bit of radio traction. So not a ton, but something. There are two lessons that I want to pull out of this. Number one is that most campaigns, even most good campaigns, are ROI negative, at least in terms of direct streaming royalties. So I ran this in a Spotify royalty calculator. I don't have access to my friends like DistroKid or whatever distributor he's using to get his payouts, but it's likely that for his 175,000-ish streams, he has made about $450, depending on a bunch of factors, but probably less than $500 in total. And we spent $3,000 on the campaign. So that's operating at like a $2,500 loss. And this was a campaign that I would consider pretty successful, a 35-cent cost per result to tier 1 markets and Discover Weekly spike and long-term algorithmic traction. All those were pretty good, and he's still at a $2,500 loss. So just something to keep in mind, if you are running ads, it is very unlikely that specifically on one song campaign, you are going to be directly ROI positive. But the other thing that I want to add on to this is that you are much more likely to make this sort of spend worthwhile if you have a plan in place to continually build your music career. So I don't mean to throw my friend under the bus, but basically after he put out these 3 songs, the first of which is the one we promoted, he hasn't done anything since in terms of releasing music, really actively promoting music. He's played a few shows here and there, but he hasn't really pushed into anything actively, which is totally fine. It's not like he has to. But the reality is, if you want your career to be building, you have to continually build it. You can't just put out 3 songs and then really not do anything other than spend some meta ads on them if you want to keep building your career. So I think in another scenario, I can imagine where, he released another EP and then another EP like a couple months later. Maybe by this time, about 2 years since he put out that first track, he's got a dozen songs out and he's actively doing things. And maybe at that point, I think there's a good chance he would have found a way to make this profitable in some way, whether that was selling tickets, whether that was selling merch, whether it was just having a bigger catalog to get streaming royalties from. Basically, because he didn't build anything, nothing was built. And so what you see is what you get. So that is what happens if you have a successful meta ads campaign and then stop running them for 16 months. Overall, honestly, I think it's relatively encouraging because there's not the steep drop off and he's roughly doubled his stream count without having lifted a finger. So all that's pretty cool. But yeah, this is just the reality of how this promo stuff works. So hopefully that's helpful. As always, if you would like to learn more about meta ads, I have a community that you can join, $15 a month, where we go over how to set up campaigns, and I also run these ads for people. So you can check all those things out at the links below, and wishing you good luck as you make and market your own music. And even if you stop marketing your music for a year, still wishing you good luck. You got this.